Could a simple baseball hat ruin a royal forever? That's exactly what happened at the 2025 World Series, and the fallout was more dramatic than anyone could have imagined. Imagine tens of thousands of fans in a stadium roaring, the floodlights blazing, cameras flashing, and two of the most recognizable figures in the world stepping onto the field. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, dressed impeccably as always, smiling for the cameras, waving to adoring fans. But all it took was a single accessory to ignite a firestorm. A hat. A blue and white Los Angeles Dodgers cap. One small gesture. One simple choice. And suddenly, what should have been a glamorous public appearance turned into a global spectacle of outrage, ridicule, and cultural tension. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Harry had no idea what he was getting himself into. Or maybe he did, but underestimated the fervor of Canadian sports fans. You see, the 2025 World Series wasn't just any baseball game. It was the pinnacle of a decades-long rivalry, the Toronto Blue Jays versus the Los Angeles Dodgers. Pride, loyalty, and decades of regional allegiances collided under the stadium lights. And Harry? He wore the hat of the opposing team, an act that to some seemed minor, almost trivial. To others, an unforgivable insult. From the very first moment Harry and Meghan entered the stadium, all eyes were on them. Cameras zoomed in, fans whipped out their phones, and social media prepared for liftoff. Onlookers whispered, some cheered, some scowled. The tension was palpable. Could anyone really imagine that a member of the British royal family, an internationally scrutinized figure, would make a mistake so small yet consequential that it could change the narrative of the night? And yet, here we are, telling the story that would define headlines for months to come. The crowd's energy was electric. Toronto fans hoped for a Blue Jays victory. Dodgers fans hoped for their team to defend their turf. And amid all this, Harry's hat choice was like throwing gasoline on an already raging fire. It's almost poetic, a royal moment, intended to show casual support for American sports culture, instead became a lesson in symbolism, loyalty, and the unspoken rules of fandom. And let's be honest, can you even imagine the chaos on Twitter? Within minutes, hashtags were trending worldwide. Hashtag Royal Hatgate. Hashtag Dodgers Disaster. Hashtag Forgive Harry Not. Memes were born, GIFs circulated, and international news outlets scrambled to cover every reaction. Now, you might be thinking, it's just a hat. People wear hats all the time. But here's where it gets complicated. Royals are not just people. Every gesture is magnified, analyzed, and often weaponized by the media. One misstep, and suddenly it's a narrative of betrayal, disrespect, or worse, a reflection of character flaws magnified on a global stage. And Harry? He might have thought he was making a casual, playful choice. Meghan likely advised him quietly, but the optics were already spiraling out of control. And spiraling they did, faster than anyone could have predicted. Let's rewind a bit and paint the scene more vividly. Imagine the stadium, packed to capacity, the smell of hot dogs and popcorn in the air, the crackle of excitement from every corner. Fans waving banners, cheering for their teams, kids perched on shoulders to get a better view. And then, through the bustling crowd, the flashes of cameras announced their arrival. A royal couple, but not just any couple, the couple that has dominated headlines for years, both for their public engagements and private controversies. Suddenly, a single accessory, Harry's Dodgers cap, becomes the focal point of the evening. The audacity, the irony, the miscalculation, and the story doesn't stop there. The way Harry and Meghan were received in the stadium was telling. Some fans cheered politely, others whispered sharply, some audibly groaned. Can you imagine the conflicting emotions flooding Harry's mind? Excitement, anticipation, pride, and a creeping sense of dread as he noticed the subtle signs of disapproval. Meghan, ever the poised companion, smiled graciously, her demeanor calm, almost strategically detached, as if she knew something the rest of the stadium didn't. But what exactly did she know? And did she see this coming? Or was she genuinely caught off guard, just like everyone else? It's important to understand why this story matters now. We live in a world where symbols matter. A hat is never just a hat when it carries cultural weight. When it represents loyalty to a city, a team, or even an entire country, it can be interpreted as an endorsement, or, in Harry's case, a betrayal. And this wasn't just a regional issue. This was international. Canada, a nation proud of its sports legacy, suddenly found itself feeling disrespected on a global stage. The apology that would follow only made things worse. Why? Because in the heat of emotional reactions, every word counts. Every gesture is dissected. And Harry, usually savvy enough to navigate international optics, misjudged the temperature of the crowd, misjudged the symbolism, misjudged the stakes. Social media erupted almost immediately. Within seconds of Harry's appearance, hundreds of thousands of posts began circulating, each adding fuel to the fire. Memes, videos, sarcastic commentary, some mocking, some outraged. And then came the more serious commentary. Op-eds, sports analysis, televised debates. Analysts dissected his choice of attire, debated the cultural implications, and questioned what this meant for the royal brand. For Harry and Meghan, this was more than just embarrassment. It was a lesson in perception, symbolism, and the dangers of casual gestures in a hypervisible world. And yet, the stakes were about to get much higher. Because the public reaction was only the beginning. Shortly after, reports surfaced that the Toronto Blue Jays organization themselves had noticed the faux pas. Statements were drafted, but the decision-making process within the MLB was just as tense. What should have been a casual event, a royal couple attending a baseball game, was turning into an international incident. Media outlets from the US, Canada, and the UK weighed in. Experts discussed whether Harry's actions constituted a minor social error or an insult that demanded consequences. And that's when the narrative truly began to spiral. Imagine being Harry in that moment. The cheers, the flashing cameras, the whispers of disapproval slowly creeping into every corner of your awareness. Could he have predicted the coming storm? Possibly. But perhaps he didn't fully understand the scale of sports loyalty, the depth of cultural pride, or the speed at which social media amplifies mistakes. And Meghan? Calm, poised, smiling, but undoubtedly aware that this would become something much bigger than just a stadium misstep. Something that would dominate headlines, fuel debates, and ultimately lead to a decision that no one saw coming. A permanent ban from the World Series itself. By the time the game ended, the story had already taken on a life of its own. Tweets were trending, headlines splashed across screens, and sports commentators were analyzing every angle. How could one have caused such chaos? One moment, you're attending a game. The next, you're part of an international controversy. It's almost Shakespearean. The tragic flaw, the hubris, the symbolic misstep that leads to unintended consequences. And yet, the full extent of the fallout had not yet been revealed. Not the public backlash, not the official statements, not the private tensions brewing behind palace doors. That was all still coming. And this brings us to the question that will haunt viewers throughout this story. How does a single, seemingly trivial action escalate into a worldwide scandal? How does a hat, a game, and a royal couple converge into a controversy that captures the attention of millions? The answer lies in symbolism, timing, and perception, and in Harry's case, a perfect storm of misjudgment. So, as we prepare to dive deeper into the events that followed, here's the tease. Harry's apology to Canada, intended to smooth things over, would not calm the storm. In fact, it would fan the flames, drawing international attention and ultimately leading to a decision that no royal or fan expected. And Meghan? Her reaction, calculated or instinctive, would shape the narrative in ways that would shock the public and make headlines for weeks. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Could you imagine stepping into a stadium of tens of thousands, knowing every eye is on you? That's exactly the pressure Harry and Meghan faced as they entered the 2025 World Series. The crowd was deafening. The air was thick with anticipation, the smell of stadium food mingling with excitement, and the stadium lights casting a golden glow over the sea of fans. Every step they took was amplified, every movement analyzed, every smile scrutinized. It sounds surreal, right? But for Harry and Meghan, this was real, and it was about to get much more intense. The couple made their way through the VIP entrance, flanked by security, reporters, and flashing cameras. Fans in the stands craned their necks, some leaning over barriers to get a glimpse. Phones raised, capturing every frame. The sheer energy was electric. Some cheered, some whispered, some scowled. The mixture of adoration and skepticism created a tension you could almost cut with a knife. It wasn't just about sports fandom. It was about loyalty, symbolism, and yes, the invisible rules that govern how celebrities, especially royals, are perceived. Harry looked around, perhaps expecting applause, or at least polite recognition. What he saw instead were faces filled with curiosity, confusion, and a hint of judgment. Meghan, ever composed, walked slightly ahead, a calm smile plastered on her face, scanning the crowd like a general surveying a battlefield. Was she fully aware of the storm brewing? Did she anticipate the subtle signals of disapproval that Harry seemed to miss? The audience can only wonder. But one thing was clear. The energy in the stadium wasn't just excitement. It was expectation, anticipation, and a quiet warning that every move would matter. From the very beginning, there was a sense of spectacle. Royals attending a baseball game isn't something you see every day. It's a blend of celebrity culture, sports culture, and global attention, all wrapped into one. But what makes this scenario so compelling and so dangerous is the collision of those worlds. Harry, accustomed to media attention, likely understood the power of optics. Meghan, strategic and media-savvy, certainly did. Yet, even with experience, the stadium presented unpredictable variables, screaming fans, camera angles, and social media amplification that no amount of preparation could fully anticipate. As the couple walked toward their seats, every step seemed to ripple through the crowd. People craned to see them, and in some sections, you could hear whispers, hushed debates, and the occasional gasp. "Why is he wearing a Dodgers hat?" someone murmured. "Isn't he supposed to support Canada?" The subtle murmurs grew louder, a hum that would soon become a roar online. For fans in the stadium, this was more than a royal visit. It was a test of loyalty. And Harry, unwittingly, was walking straight into a storm. Meghan, on the other hand, exuded her usual calm. She nodded politely at fans, waved when cameras flashed, and moved with an almost deliberate grace. But beneath the poise, there was tension. Perhaps she saw the beginnings of a backlash forming. Perhaps she knew that one misstep, one misinterpreted gesture, could turn the evening from celebration to controversy. Royals are trained to understand optics, but even the most seasoned can misread the room, and the stadium, filled with passionate baseball fans, was an unpredictable stage. The energy shifted as they reached their seats. The stadium erupted in cheers not just for the teams, but for the presence of royalty. VIPs and fans alike snapped photos, posted videos, and live-streamed the moment. And yet, amidst the excitement, there were cracks. Some Canadian fans whispered among themselves, clearly uneasy about the symbolism of the Dodgers hat. The tension was subtle at first, like a tremor before an earthquake. But the undercurrent was unmistakable. A royal gaffe in the making, and no one yet knew how explosive it would become. Have you ever noticed how crowds react to celebrity missteps? There's a collective energy, almost a wave, that spreads when someone does something unexpected. That energy can turn admiration into outrage, curiosity into criticism. Harry and Meghan were about to experience that firsthand. And it wasn't just a matter of perception. It was about national pride, symbolism, and the cultural weight of sports allegiance. The Dodgers hat, in the blink of an eye, had become a statement, and not the one Harry intended. As the camera crews followed them, capturing every smile, every wave, every moment of grace under pressure, whispers began to morph into audible chatter. "He should be wearing a Blue Jays hat," someone said. "Doesn't he know what this means?" Another fan muttered, "He's representing royalty, but he's disrespecting the city." The tension in the stadium escalated subtly, building like a slow-burning fuse. By the time the couple sat, the crowd's reaction had reached a tipping point. Some fans clapped politely, some cheered half-heartedly, and others openly groaned. And all the while, social media had already begun its silent work, capturing each moment, each gesture, ready to amplify it to the world. It's important to understand the magnitude of this moment. Royals attending public events always face scrutiny, but sports fandom is uniquely intense. It's tribal, it's passionate, it's deeply personal. And when you mix that with global celebrity, you create the perfect storm for scrutiny and controversy. Harry, perhaps thinking this was a casual show of support for American culture, had miscalculated the intensity of Canadian pride. Meghan, poised and aware, may have anticipated the fallout, but anticipation is not prevention. The stage was set, the tension palpable, and the story was only beginning. Meanwhile, in the crowd, reactions were varied but potent. Some fans were trying to remain neutral, applauding out of courtesy. Others whispered in disbelief, pointing fingers, shaking their heads. A few even took to social media mid-game, posting short clips with captions like, "Royal faux pas at the World Series," or "Harry betrays Canada with his hat choice." And like wildfire, these posts began circulating, gaining traction, views, and ultimately becoming a part of the story itself. Every cheer, every murmur, every post fed into the narrative of what was quickly becoming a global spectacle. Then came the first visible sign of tension between Harry and Meghan. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to casual viewers, but anyone attuned to body language could see it. A small shift in posture, a flicker of awareness. Harry adjusted his hat, perhaps sensing the unease but not fully grasping its magnitude. Meghan, still poised, leaned slightly toward him, offering a calm, almost imperceptible signal of guidance. Could she have been trying to steer him through the storm? Or was this simply her measured response to an inevitable situation? Either way, it added a layer of intrigue, a subtle hint that the evening would not go as smoothly as planned. And yet, despite all of this, Harry and Meghan remained in the spotlight, smiling for cameras, acknowledging fans, and maintaining an air of dignity. The juxtaposition was striking. Poise and grace amid growing tension, admiration mingled with scrutiny, excitement tinged with disapproval. The stadium, a microcosm of the world, was holding its breath. What would happen next? Would Harry recognize the growing storm? Could Meghan manage the optics? Or was this the beginning of a controversy that would escalate far beyond a single stadium visit? As the opening ceremonies concluded, the couple's presence was already being dissected. Every gesture, every wave, every glance noted by cameras, fans, and analysts alike. The stage was set for a misstep, a moment of tension that would spark outrage, debate, and viral coverage. And all it took was one accessory, one hat, one seemingly trivial choice, to set the narrative in motion. The calm before the storm was over. The audience was watching, the media was circling, and the consequences were about to unfold in ways no one could have anticipated. But what came next? The moment Harry would realize the weight of that choice, the moment the apology would spiral into global backlash, was still looming on the horizon. And it would change everything. But what came next? The moment Harry would realize the weight of that choice, the moment the apology would spiral into global backlash, was still looming on the horizon. Have you ever thought about how one simple accessory can ignite a firestorm? In Harry's case, it wasn't just a hat. It was a statement, a symbol. And symbols, especially in sports, carry a weight that is often underestimated. The Los Angeles Dodgers hat he casually placed on his head as he entered the 2025 World Series instantly became the center of attention. To some, it was a harmless gesture, a nod to American culture and the team's historic legacy. To others, it was a betrayal, an affront to Canadian pride. And to a global audience glued to social media, it was entertainment, a scandal in the making. The reaction started subtly. Some fans noticed immediately, whispering to each other, shaking their heads, pointing out the incongruity. "Why is he wearing a Dodgers hat?" a young man asked his friend, eyes wide in disbelief. "He's supposed to support the Blue Jays, not LA." In a stadium of tens of thousands, even whispers can carry far, and soon those whispers became murmurs that rippled through the crowd like water turning into waves. Cameras caught every angle. Cell phones captured every frame. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of them were primed to explode the moment the hat made its appearance. At first, Harry might have thought it was harmless. After all, he's accustomed to public scrutiny, to being analyzed, critiqued, and dissected. One hat couldn't possibly cause that much fuss, right? But the dynamics of sports fandom are different. Sports loyalty is tribal. It's visceral. It's emotionally charged. And when you mix that intensity with celebrity culture, it creates a volatile mix. One gesture, one momentary lapse of judgment, and you have the perfect storm of outrage. And it didn't take long for the storm to form. Within minutes, social media lit up. Tweets were sent. Memes were created. Hashtags began trending. Hashtag Royal Hatgate. Hashtag Dodgers disaster. Hashtag Harry betrays Canada. The global audience, glued to their screens, became part of the story in real time. What started as a private choice in a stadium suddenly became a worldwide spectacle. And the irony was palpable. Harry, who had spent years cultivating an image of relatability and approachability, had unwittingly tripped into the exact trap he had often warned others about: the power of optics. Meanwhile, Meghan's reaction was telling. Calm, composed, strategically poised. She nodded politely at fans, smiled for cameras, and walked with measured grace. But there was a flicker, a subtle acknowledgement that she knew what was about to unfold. Perhaps she anticipated the backlash. Perhaps she didn't. Meghan's media savvy is renowned, but even the best strategists cannot fully control a crowd or the viral force of social media. The storm was forming, and Meghan, despite her composure, would soon have to navigate it alongside Harry. The stadium itself seemed to respond to the hat. Sections of fans shifted uneasily in their seats. A few openly muttered their disapproval. Others tried to remain neutral, applauding politely, but not with the same enthusiasm they had shown moments before. And then there were those who captured the moment on their phones, sharing it instantly with the world. Within 10 minutes, the hashtag Dodgers disaster had amassed tens of thousands of posts, each one adding fuel to a fire that was already beginning to spread. And it wasn't just fans who noticed. Analysts, commentators, and journalists immediately recognized the potential consequences. Sports networks began discussing the incident in real time. A royal gaffe at the World Series, one announcer noted, voice tinged with both amusement and disbelief. Prince Harry has chosen the Dodgers, and Canadian fans are not happy. The commentary ranged from humorous to serious, with experts debating the cultural significance of the misstep. In less than 15 minutes, what should have been a quiet ceremonial appearance had exploded into an international incident. But what made the moment truly combustible wasn't just the hat. It was the context. Harry wasn't just any attendee at the game. He was a member of the British royal family, whose every public action carries symbolic weight. Royals are scrutinized for even the smallest gestures, and Harry had stepped into a minefield of symbolism without realizing it. The Dodgers cap, while innocuous in intention, represented something much larger, a perceived disrespect to Canadian pride and sports culture. The choice was innocent, but the perception was devastating. Fans didn't hold back. Some began posting videos of Harry in the stadium, zooming in on the hat, mocking the apparent lack of loyalty. Memes spread rapidly. Harry photoshopped into Dodgers jerseys in absurd situations. GIFs of Canadians looking shocked every time the camera cut to the royal couple. Playful, but biting commentary that quickly went viral. Every meme, every clip, every post amplified the narrative. Harry had made a mistake, and it was not going unnoticed. The irony here cannot be overstated. Harry, who has often spoken about the importance of public perception, relatability, and connecting with audiences, had inadvertently created a scenario where perception overshadowed intention. A simple, casual gesture, a cap, had turned into a global controversy. And while Meghan maintained her composed exterior, the tension between intention and perception was building. Fans, analysts, and commentators alike were primed to scrutinize every subsequent move. Then came the tipping point, subtle but unmistakable reactions from those closest to Canadian sports. In the stands, former Blue Jays players attending the game were caught on camera exchanging glances. A few murmured under their breath. And within minutes, snippets of these reactions made their way to social media, further fanning the flames. A minor misstep was becoming a major incident. At this point, Harry began to feel the weight of the moment. Perhaps he realized, just slightly, that this wasn't going to be a minor headline. Perhaps he sensed the brewing storm of cultural backlash, national pride, and global attention. His eyes flicked around the stadium, noting the subtle disapproval of fans, the quiet murmurs, the flashes capturing every moment. The pressure was mounting, and it was palpable. Meghan, ever aware, continued her poised stride, acknowledging fans without breaking composure. But even her calm couldn't shield them from what was about to unfold. The tension escalated as commentators began discussing the implications. Sports networks, Morning shows and international media quickly caught on. Prince Harry in a Dodgers hat. Outrage or innocent mistake, one headline read. Canadian pride feels betrayed by royal fashion choice, another declared. Across the globe, people were debating, joking, criticizing, and sharing. And for the couple seated in the stadium, the story had already begun to take on a life of its own, one they couldn't control. But here's the twist, the hat wasn't the only problem. It was also about timing, context, and the unseen dynamics of fandom. The Blue Jays had an emotionally charged fan base, many of whom had long waited for this matchup. The Dodgers were rivals, yes, but the stakes extended beyond baseball. This was about cultural loyalty, national identity, and a subtle yet powerful sense of pride. Harry's choice, while seemingly trivial, had crossed a line that few would forgive. And Meghan, for all her composure, had to navigate both the optics and the implications. And just when it seemed the hat alone would cause enough trouble, whispers began to spread. Fans speculated about whether the choice was intentional, about whether Meghan had advised him, about whether this was a statement of neutrality or an outright miscalculation. The ambiguity added fuel to the fire. Social media users thrived on contradictions, on uncertainty, on the tension between intention and perception. Each post, each clip, each meme added layers to a story that was already exploding beyond the stadium walls. So here's the question. What happens when a royal misstep collides with national pride, sports loyalty, and global media scrutiny? In Harry's case, it became the perfect storm. One hat had turned a ceremonial appearance into an international incident. And yet, this was only the beginning. The hat had sparked outrage, but the consequences were about to escalate in ways no one could have predicted. Because the stadium reaction was only the tip of the iceberg. As Harry and Meghan navigated the crowd, as fans whispered and cameras clicked, the social media storm was already gathering momentum. Within minutes, major Canadian news outlets were picking up the story. Analysts debated whether Harry's choice was a minor faux pas or a sign of deeper misunderstanding. Headlines questioned whether a member of the royal family could ever make a neutral choice in a sports rivalry. And Harry? He was beginning to feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. And just when it seemed the tension had reached its peak, an unexpected development occurred. A fan in the front row shouted something that was immediately picked up by nearby cameras. Laughter, gasps, murmurs spread through the stadium. The moment was caught on video, uploaded instantly, and within minutes had gone viral. What was meant to be a ceremonial entrance had become a spectacle of public scrutiny and mockery. But the real question loomed. How would Harry respond? Would he address the hat, attempt to explain, or stay silent? And more importantly, how would Meghan navigate the fallout? The answers to these questions would determine whether this moment remained a minor embarrassment or escalated into a scandal that could redefine their public perception forever. The hat had sparked outrage, yes. But what came next, the apology, the media frenzy, and the official statements, would push the story into uncharted territory. And no one, not even the royals themselves, could have predicted just how far it would go. The hat had sparked outrage, yes. But what came next, the apology, the media frenzy, and the official statements, would push the story into uncharted territory. Have you ever witnessed a social media storm in real time? It's fascinating. It's chaotic. It's terrifying. And in the case of Harry and Meghan at the 2025 World Series, it became a global phenomenon almost instantly. As Harry's Dodgers hat made its way into the public consciousness, platforms like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and even Reddit erupted simultaneously, each post amplifying the outrage. Within minutes, memes were born, hashtags were trending, and a story that started in a stadium in the United States became a worldwide spectacle. The first posts were casual, almost mocking in tone. Photos of Harry adjusting the hat, videos of fans reacting, GIFs exaggerating the supposed betrayal. But as the minutes ticked by, the tone shifted. Tweets questioning Harry's allegiance, posts lamenting Canadian pride, and comment threads debating whether this was a royal misstep or intentional provocation flooded timelines. And it didn't take long for journalists to join the fray. Headlines exploded. Royal faux pas at World Series. Prince Harry offends Canada with Dodgers hat. Meghan Markle watches in silence as royal controversy spirals. The virality of the incident was staggering. Within 30 minutes, hundreds of thousands of posts had been shared, liked, and commented on. Millions of people around the world were watching, reacting, and sharing their own opinions. Fans created videos analyzing Harry's body language, scrutinizing Meghan's reactions, and speculating on the intentions behind the choice of hat. One TikTok video, which juxtaposed Harry wearing the Dodgers hat with iconic Blue Jays moments, went viral in less than an hour, racking up millions of views. It was both hilarious and brutal. And the ironic twist? The couple likely hadn't even anticipated the speed and scale at which this story would spread. Memes, of course, became the language of the outrage. Photoshop battles placed Harry in absurd scenarios, standing on the wrong dugout, exchanging hats with Dodgers mascots, or being booed by entire stadiums of animated fans. Each meme amplified the story, each joke added a layer of social commentary, and each viral post reinforced the narrative. Harry had made a monumental faux pas. But memes weren't just entertainment. They were cultural commentary, reflecting national pride, sports loyalty, and the expectations placed on public figures, especially royals. And then came the hashtag storm. Hashtag Royal Hatgate was just the beginning. Hashtag Dodgers disaster. Hashtag Forgive Harry Not. Hashtag Harry betrays Canada. Each hashtag represented a thread of outrage, a collective emotional reaction that connected millions of people across borders. What's remarkable is how quickly these hashtags gained traction. Within an hour, they were trending not just in Canada and the US, but globally. Analysts noted that this was one of the fastest-growing royal controversies in social media history. The sheer velocity of the reaction turned a minor stadium moment into an international incident. But here's where it gets even more intense. The commentary wasn't confined to ordinary fans. Influencers, celebrities, and sports analysts jumped in, each adding their voice to the storm. Some mocked Harry humorously, some criticized him harshly, and others speculated about the implications for the royal family. One prominent sports commentator tweeted, "A Dodgers hat? At the Blue Jays World Series? That's either a PR disaster or a royal rebellion. Either way, it's headline news." The tweet alone was shared tens of thousands of times, adding credibility to the outrage and spreading it to audiences who might not even follow baseball. And Meghan? She remained composed, but the tension was palpable. Fans dissected her every expression, a subtle nod, a calm smile, a slight lean toward Harry. Was she trying to guide him through the fallout? Was she silently calculating her next move? Or was her calm simply a facade, masking her own anxiety about the brewing controversy? Every gesture was scrutinized, every movement analyzed, and every subtle interaction became fodder for the global audience glued to their screens. The irony of the social media eruption was profound. Harry, who had cultivated an image of relatability, had inadvertently triggered a wave of criticism that emphasized the very opposite: detachment, miscalculation, and public embarrassment. Posts highlighted the contrast between his casual approach to the hat and the intensity of the fan reaction. Analysts dissected every angle: the symbolism of the Dodgers cap, the cultural pride of Canadian fans, the expectations placed on royals in public appearances. And the global audience lapped it up, simultaneously entertained, outraged, and fascinated by the unfolding spectacle. Soon, the discussion moved beyond the stadium. Canadian news outlets picked up the story, amplifying the outrage with analysis, interviews, and panel discussions. Royal misstep or cultural insult? One headline read. Prince Harry's Dodgers hat sparks national debate, declared another. Even international media in the UK, US, and Australia covered the incident, framing it as a symbolic failure to respect fan loyalty and national pride. Social media metrics skyrocketed, television viewership surged, and the story became one of the most talked-about topics of the day. The intensity of the reaction highlighted an uncomfortable truth. In the modern world, social media can turn minor missteps into global controversies almost instantly. The stadium moment, which might have been forgotten within hours in previous decades, was now immortalized online. Videos circulated endlessly, comment threads multiplied, and every viewer became part of the narrative. The couple, unaware of the exact scale of the reaction at first, would soon realize that their presence at a baseball game had ignited something far beyond their control. What made this eruption so fascinating and terrifying? was the emotional dimension. Fans weren't just reacting logically, they were reacting emotionally. Pride, loyalty, humor, outrage, and even betrayal all intertwined to create a complex tapestry of public sentiment. Every fan felt personally invested in the narrative. Social media provided an immediate outlet, allowing individual emotions to merge into collective outrage. And for Harry and Meghan, the stakes were no longer personal. They were national, cultural, and global. And then came the influencers, celebrities, and analysts who ensured that the story would not die quietly. Clips of the couple circulated, gifs were created, and commentary poured in. One celebrity sports analyst tweeted, "Imagine attending the World Series and wearing the rival team's hat. Royals are not immune to fan scrutiny." Another posted a humorous meme, showing Harry in full Dodgers gear while Canadian fans stared in disbelief. Each contribution amplified the story, turning it into a full-blown cultural phenomenon. The pace of the social media eruption was staggering. Within hours, millions of people were engaging with content related to the incident. Tweets, shares, retweets, and posts multiplied exponentially. News outlets reported trending hashtags, influencers added commentary, and fan communities debated endlessly. The story was no longer confined to a stadium. It had gone global. And with global attention came global judgment. The irony was brutal. A casual gesture intended to show support or simply enjoy a cultural experience had transformed into a symbol of perceived disrespect. Harry's image, carefully curated over years, was suddenly under attack. Meghan's composure, admirable though it was, could not prevent the narrative from spiraling. And the social media storm, as volatile as it was entertaining, showed no signs of slowing down. The real kicker came when memes started to merge humor with pointed commentary. Videos juxtaposed Harry's casual demeanor with the passionate reactions of fans. Photoshopped images placed him in ridiculous situations, exaggerating the apparent betrayal. And while some posts were funny, others carried biting criticism, reflecting a sentiment that the stadium had already felt in whispers, that Harry had misjudged not just the crowd, but the cultural stakes. So, here's the question for you. How do you handle a social media explosion when it's global, instantaneous, and relentless? How do you recover from an error that becomes a meme, a headline, and a national talking point all at once? For Harry, the answer would come soon, but the path would not be easy. The Dodgers' hat had triggered a storm, and the winds of backlash were only beginning to pick up. And just when it seemed the situation couldn't get any more intense, a new layer of controversy emerged. A viral video captured a fan shouting at the couple, clearly upset, while the stadium erupted with mixed reactions. The clip was shared across platforms, gaining millions of views within the hour. It wasn't just a reaction, it was a catalyst. The social media storm had entered a new phase, one that would test the couple's poise, judgment, and ability to navigate a crisis that had grown far beyond a stadium misstep. What happened next? The apology, the official statements, and the global media storm would make this one of the most unforgettable royal controversies in modern history. And no one could have predicted the full scale of the fallout. What happened next? The apology, the official statements, and the global media storm would make this one of the most unforgettable royal controversies in modern history. But the twist, the moment that would truly define the narrative, came not from the hat itself, but from Harry's decision to speak. Have you ever wondered if sometimes trying to fix a problem only makes it worse? That's exactly what happened in the aftermath of the Dodgers' hat fiasco. Within hours of the stadium incident, Harry's team released a public statement. The wording was careful, diplomatic, even cautious. But as anyone who has ever faced a PR crisis knows, tone and perception are everything. One small misstep in phrasing could turn an apology into a public relations disaster. And in this case, it did. The statement read something like this. Prince Harry deeply regrets any offense caused by his choice of attire at the 2025 World Series. He apologizes to Canadian fans and expresses his sincere respect for the Toronto Blue Jays and their loyal supporters. On paper, it sounds reasonable, right? An acknowledgement, a respectful gesture, an attempt to mend a growing backlash. But the public, fueled by social media outrage, didn't receive it that way. Within minutes of its release, the apology was dissected, mocked, and criticized. The first problem was timing. Harry issued the apology after the storm had already begun to peak. Social media, analysts, and journalists were already reacting to the hat itself, the stadium reactions, and fan commentary. By the time the statement landed, millions of people had already formed strong opinions. In the world of viral outrage, timing is everything. And in this case, the timing amplified the criticism rather than diffusing it. Second, there was the tone. Some observers felt the apology was overly formal, detached, and lacking sincerity. Critics argued that it sounded like a statement drafted by a team of PR experts rather than a heartfelt expression of regret. On Twitter, posts flooded in dissecting the language. He expresses his sincere respect. That's not an apology, it's corporate speak, one user wrote. Memes surfaced mocking the phrasing, contrasting the formality of the statement with the casual, almost irreverent nature of a baseball game. The combination of timing and tone ensured that the apology was not only ineffective but, ironically, part of the growing scandal. Meanwhile, Meghan's reaction was subtle but noticeable. Unlike Harry, she didn't make a formal statement. Instead, she appeared composed, poised, and calm, maintaining her public demeanor while the world erupted around her. Some speculated she had intentionally avoided commenting, understanding that any statement could further inflame the situation. Others suggested that she might have been privately advising Harry on the best way to navigate the fallout. Either way, the contrast between his formal apology and her silent, calculated presence became a point of discussion and analysis across social media and news outlets alike. The irony was palpable. Harry, who had often been praised for his relatability and ability to connect with the public, had made a gesture that inadvertently symbolized detachment, misjudgment, and, in the eyes of some, even disrespect. The apology, intended to smooth things over, only heightened the scrutiny. Experts on media perception, crisis management, and royal behavior weighed in, dissecting every word, every punctuation mark, every implication of the statement. And the audience? They ate it up. They laughed, debated, criticized, and shared, turning the apology itself into another viral moment. Social media users didn't stop there. They began juxtaposing Harry's statement with clips of him wearing the hat at the stadium, creating memes and commentary highlighting the contradiction. One trending post showed Harry waving to fans in the Dodgers cap with the caption, "Sorry, doesn't look like this." Another included Meghan smiling calmly beside him with the caption, "Silent approval or strategic genius?" The combination of humor, critique, and viral sharing ensured that the apology itself became an extension of the controversy rather than a resolution. And then came the international coverage. Canadian news outlets framed the apology as an acknowledgement of the cultural offense, but questioned its sincerity. Headlines splashed across television screens. Prince Harry apologizes for Dodgers hat. Canadians still unimpressed. Royal apology fails to calm outrage over sports faux pas. U.S. networks reported on the controversy with a mix of amusement and intrigue, while UK tabloids focused on the embarrassment and implications for royal image. Within hours, the apology had gone from a simple statement to a global discussion topic, dissected by experts, fans, and social commentators alike. Here's the paradox. The apology was technically correct. Harry acknowledged the offense, expressed regret, and attempted to show respect for Canadian fans. Yet, in practice, it failed. Why? Because perception often outweighs intention. In a situation where emotions run high, national pride, fan loyalty, celebrity scrutiny, words are scrutinized, motives questioned, and gestures reinterpreted. Harry's apology, intended as a calming gesture, became another opportunity for public debate and social media outrage. And the emotional stakes were high. For Canadian fans, the incident felt like more than just a hat or a public misstep. It felt like a betrayal of loyalty and cultural pride. Social media amplified those emotions, making the reaction more intense, immediate, and widespread. For Harry and Meghan, the personal stakes were equally high. Reputations, global perception, and media narratives were now intertwined in a story they had no control over. Every tweet, every post, every video comment became part of the unfolding drama. In addition to social media and news coverage, influencers and celebrities weighed in. Some mocked the formal tone of the apology, Others criticized the lack of authenticity, and some even speculated about internal palace reactions. The mixture of humor, criticism, and analysis added another layer to the scandal, making it nearly impossible for Harry to regain control of the narrative. Each new voice amplified the story, creating a snowball effect that would ultimately reach a crescendo far beyond anyone's expectations. And then there was the subtle but pervasive irony of it all. The apology itself became part of the problem. Harry, attempting to repair the situation, inadvertently confirmed that the initial gesture, the hat, was a significant error. The statement validated the outrage, giving critics ammunition while leaving supporters confused. Social media algorithms, always hungry for engagement, amplified the content further, spreading it to audiences who might not even follow baseball or royal news. The apology had, unintentionally, made the situation worse. So here's the question. How do you recover from an apology that fuels the very controversy it was meant to resolve? For Harry, the challenge was immense. He had already misjudged the symbolic weight of a simple hat. He had underestimated the intensity of fan loyalty. And now, after attempting to rectify the situation, the backlash had escalated. Each moment became a delicate balancing act between perception, intent, and cultural sensitivity. And Meghan? Her composed presence, while admirable, added another layer of intrigue. Was she silently managing the crisis, or simply navigating the optics while letting Harry face the storm? The stakes escalated further when clips of the stadium reaction to the apology went viral. Fans had recorded moments of spectators discussing Harry's statement in real time, many visibly skeptical or amused. One clip, which quickly gained traction, showed a section of Canadian fans shaking their heads in disbelief, some laughing, some groaning. "He apologized, but does he really get it?" one fan asked. Another muttered, "It's not about the words, it's about understanding." The combination of amusement and disapproval perfectly captured the complex emotional reaction of the public. And here's another twist. The apology also drew attention from sports organizations themselves. The Toronto Blue Jays, initially silent observers, noticed the controversy and were soon asked to comment. Their response, carefully measured but firm, suggested disappointment without overt criticism. "We appreciate recognition of our fan base," one statement read, "and hope that future gestures will align more closely with the spirit of Canadian pride and baseball loyalty." Even a measured response from the team added to the sense of public scrutiny, reinforcing the narrative that Harry's choice and subsequent apology had tangible consequences. It was clear the apology had not diffused the situation. It had elevated it. It had turned a minor misstep into an international spectacle. Memes, commentary, celebrity opinions, news coverage, and fan reactions all merged into a perfect storm of outrage, humor, and fascination. And for Harry and Meghan, the evening was far from over. The real challenge, navigating the fallout from a statement that backfired spectacularly, was just beginning. But just when it seemed the storm couldn't intensify further, the next escalation arrived. Social media users began speculating about Harry's motives. Was the apology genuine? Was it scripted by PR teams? Did Meghan influence it? The questions multiplied, turning what should have been a short-lived moment of public contrition into a multi-layered saga of perception, intent, and speculation. And the world was watching. Every post, every clip, every reaction was now part of a growing narrative that no one could control. The apology had made things worse, and the consequences, both public and private, were about to hit with full force. And the world was watching. Every post, every clip, every reaction was now part of a growing narrative that no one could control. The apology had made things worse, and the consequences, both public and private, were about to hit with full force. Have you ever witnessed a nation react in unison, as if the collective heartbeat of millions synchronized around a single moment? That's exactly what happened in Canada after Harry's Dodgers hat and subsequent apology. What began as whispers in stadium stands had now evolved into an unmistakable roar of national outrage. Social media, television networks, radio shows, and newspapers all amplified the controversy, turning a minor royal misstep into a story that dominated headlines across the country. It started subtly, with reaction videos and memes spreading across platforms. Fans posted clips of Harry adjusting his hat at the stadium, paired with sarcastic commentary about his apparent betrayal of Canadian pride. One viral tweet read, "Prince Harry, ruining Blue Jays fandom one hat at a time." The humor was biting, the critique sharp, and the commentary relentless. But these early posts were only the beginning. As the day progressed, the backlash intensified, moving from social media into mainstream news coverage. Canadian sports networks led the charge. Analysts dissected Harry's hat choice with the precision of a surgical procedure, debating the cultural implications and the psychology of fandom. Wearing a Dodgers hat at the World Series is more than just a fashion choice, one analyst remarked. It's a statement, intentional or not, and it has consequences when loyalty and pride are on the line. Panelists argued, debated, and questioned whether the royal misstep reflected ignorance, carelessness, or something deeper. The story quickly became the leading headline on every Canadian sports channel, with anchors alternating between amusement and incredulity. But it wasn't just sports analysts. Ordinary fans took to social media in droves. Thousands of posts expressed disappointment, frustration, and even anger. How could he disrespect Canadian fans like that? One post asked. "He's a global figure, and he couldn't even get this right," another lamented. The language reflected more than anger. It reflected a sense of betrayal. Harry, who had often positioned himself as relatable and empathetic, was suddenly being framed as out of touch and careless. Every GIF, meme, and comment amplified the backlash, creating a snowball effect that showed no signs of slowing down. And the memes, they were relentless. Some highlighted the absurdity of a royal wearing an opposing team's hat. Others juxtaposed Harry in the Dodgers cap with images of Canadian pride, maple leaves, hockey jerseys, Blue Jays logos, all pointing to the perceived betrayal. Humor, irony, and critique merged into one, transforming social media into a living commentary on the incident. But the memes weren't just funny. They were a reflection of cultural tension. Fans weren't simply mocking Harry. They were defending what they saw as a slight against their national identity. Meanwhile, Meghan's composed presence continued to draw attention. Unlike Harry, she hadn't released a statement. She hadn't addressed the controversy directly. But her calm, measured demeanor only fueled speculation. Was she silently guiding the narrative? Was she calculating how to manage the public perception? Or was she merely observing as the chaos unfolded, confident that her poise would speak louder than any words could? Fans and commentators debated endlessly. Some saw her as a stabilizing influence. Others speculated that she was silently calculating the next move. The irony of the situation was impossible to ignore. Harry, who had often been praised for connecting with fans and the public, had inadvertently alienated one of Canada's most passionate communities. Meghan, often portrayed as strategic and media-savvy, became the counterpoint, poised and controlled amid chaos. The juxtaposition fueled even more commentary, with articles dissecting the emotional dynamic between the two, analyzing whether their differing reactions revealed something deeper about their public strategy. As the backlash reached its peak, Canadian news outlets escalated their coverage. Headlines became sharper, analysis more pointed. "Royal gaffe stuns Blue Jays fans," one article read. "Prince Harry under fire for Dodgers hat," another declared. Op-eds questioned whether Harry understood the cultural weight of sports fandom, with phrases like misjudged national sentiment and symbolic betrayal appearing repeatedly. The narrative was clear. The royal couple's presence at the World Series had become a story not just about sports, but about respect, loyalty, and cultural understanding. Social media amplified the national outrage even further. Videos of Canadian fans expressing disbelief went viral. In one clip, a father and son duo shook their heads, muttering about how Harry had disrespected the Blue Jays. In another, a group of college students posted a reaction video, holding up signs jokingly declaring, "No royals allowed at our games." Each post, each video, each tweet reinforced the story, turning a single hat into a national talking point. Even local commentators and radio hosts joined in. On morning talk shows, hosts debated the symbolism of the hat and its implications for the royal image. "It's not just a fashion choice," one host emphasized. "It's about understanding the culture you're stepping into." Harry failed to do that. Another added, When you represent a global brand or a royal family, every gesture counts. Every detail matters. This is a lesson in optics, and he learned it the hard way. The analysis was relentless, creating a sense that the controversy was spiraling beyond repair. And then came the political dimension. Some commentators argued that the misstep reflected broader issues of international diplomacy and cultural awareness. Could a royal's misjudgment affect public sentiment in Canada? Did this incident have subtle implications for Canada-UK relations? While many acknowledged that these concerns were exaggerated, the fact that they were discussed at all highlighted the scale of the backlash. A single hat had become a symbol of potential disrespect, and the apology had only fueled the fire. Fans, meanwhile, continued to flood social media with commentary. Twitter threads exploded with discussion, ranging from humorous takes to serious critiques. Memes juxtaposed Harry in the Dodgers cap with Canadian icons, hockey players, maple leaves, national flags. TikTok videos recreated the stadium scene, exaggerating reactions for comedic effect. And Instagram posts showed side-by-side comparisons of Harry's hat and Blue Jays gear, emphasizing the contrast. The narrative was no longer confined to the stadium. It had gone global, with millions of people participating in the story in real time. The emotional intensity of the backlash cannot be overstated. Fans weren't just upset, they felt betrayed. Their loyalty, their pride, and their sense of national identity seemed dismissed by what they perceived as a careless gesture. And as the day progressed, the outrage intensified. Social media sentiment analysis showed peaks of negative emotion, with anger, disappointment, and disbelief dominating the conversation. Harry and Meghan were at the center of a cultural storm that had no easy resolution. And yet, amid the uproar, some voices defended the couple. A small but vocal segment of fans argued that the reaction was overblown, that a hat was just a hat, and that social media had amplified the situation disproportionately. "It's ridiculous," one post read. "He's a human being, not a sports mascot." These defenses, however, were quickly drowned out by the overwhelming wave of criticism, demonstrating how quickly social media can amplify outrage while minimizing nuance. By the end of the day, the backlash had reached a crescendo. Headlines, tweets, memes, and news segments all painted the same picture. Harry's Dodgers hat had sparked a national outcry. Apologies had failed, commentary had intensified, and fan reactions continued to pour in. The story had transcended the boundaries of sports, royalty, and social media, becoming a cultural moment that would be remembered for years. And yet, just when it seemed the controversy had peaked, a new twist emerged. Rumors began circulating that the Toronto Blue Jays organization itself was considering a statement about the incident. Social media users speculated wildly. Would they condemn Harry, accept his apology, or ignore the situation entirely? The speculation added another layer to the story, creating anticipation and uncertainty that fueled even more engagement. What happened next? The MLB's shocking official response would turn the story from a viral controversy into an unprecedented international incident. Fans, commentators, and media outlets waited with bated breath. And the world would soon discover that a single hat, a royal apology, and a passionate fan base could combine to produce consequences no one anticipated. What happened next? The MLB's shocking official response would turn the story from a viral controversy into an unprecedented international incident. The stadium drama, the memes, the social media storm, and even the failed apology had all been leading to this moment. And the world waited with bated breath to see how the league would react to a royal misstep that no one had ever imagined could escalate so dramatically. You might be asking yourself, can a baseball league really ban royalty from attending a game? It sounds almost absurd, doesn't it? Yet, for the Major League Baseball executives, the situation had escalated far beyond the parameters of a simple social blunder. The optics were impossible to ignore. Canadian fans were furious. Social media was ablaze. Analysts and commentators were speculating on the consequences. Sponsors were subtly signaling concern. And here, at the pinnacle of a global sports event, a simple Dodgers hat had become a diplomatic and cultural crisis. Inside the MLB headquarters, a flurry of meetings was underway. Executives debated endlessly. Emails were exchanged with increasing urgency. Lawyers weighed in, PR teams prepared statements, and strategists considered the implications for the league's image. The question wasn't just about a hat. It was about loyalty, national pride, and fan perception. How could the league maintain credibility with fans when one of the most famous couples in the world had so blatantly worn the wrong team's apparel in a high-profile game? The answer, as shocking as it would become, was decisive. Action had to be taken. And then it happened. The league released a statement that would reverberate across sports, social media, and international headlines. It read, in part, Major League Baseball has reviewed the events of the 2025 World Series involving Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. After careful consideration, the league has determined that the couple will be permanently banned from attending any future MLB events, effective immediately. This decision reflects our commitment to respecting fan loyalty, team allegiances, and the cultural significance of our sport. Can you even imagine reading that as a fan, or as Harry himself? Permanently banned.